Hello there, and welcome back to the Disconnected. I am here live with my frequent collaborator and dear friend, Will Dodson, and we are going to continue to run down some of our favorite things from 2022, including a handful of categories that will just be better off during a discussion. So first of all, Will, how we doing? And why don't you share what's on the table behind you, just because it's hilarious.
Doing great. Happy New Year to everybody. I hope everybody had happy holidays. I hope everybody stayed warm. I was just telling Ryan, my family is in the midst of a move, and my current job requires me to live on the university campus in a staff apartment. So for at least this semester, until it's January now, so until May of this semester, I'm going to be kind of splitting time back and forth, and that means I have a 3-bedroom apartment that my family used to live in that's now just me. And so I'm converting one of my daughter's bedrooms into a movie display room, a vault, just so that I can flex the collection for a few months before I have to put everything in boxes. And so if you look behind me, you'll see P through T of my collection, plus these 2 stacks immediately behind me, 104 films directed by Jess Franco. That's those 2 stacks.
Jesus. So yeah, that is the new forthcoming box set from Severin with 127 films from Jess Franco. It will be half 4K and will cost you the price of 3 vehicles. The first thing that I wanted to run down this year is just first of all, like what was Will's 2022 like when it comes to film and physical media in general?
It was 2022 was. I mean, it was a tough year. Socially, politically, economically for everybody, but we're keeping things on the bright side of life here. For collecting, for releases of films, it was a bad year. I couldn't believe some of the films that were announced, some of the films that were released. I had, as of course we've mentioned on the show before, I had the great honor of contributing a commentary track to Kino Lorber's release of Tobe Hooper's I'm Dangerous Tonight, which is such a strange and a random film to release at all, much less with 2 commentaries, an incredible behind-the-scenes documentary featuring Stan Giese, who was on the set, and I think there's a video essay as well. Just unbelievable. So if I'm Dangerous Tonight is getting that kind of treatment, 2022 was a pretty good year for film fans, for researchers and scholars of film history, and for filmmakers. I mean, might not be making as much money as they're accustomed to, unless you're Top Gun. But and I'm going to talk about how much I hate Top Gun at some point. But yeah, it's a long-winded answer because I'm still kind of reeling from just how much stuff came out, how much stuff I got to see or put in the to-watch pile. And then, of course, the announcements for 2023 are already like, Yep.
I would agree. I think 2022, it feels like the quality did not really go down overall, but for some reason, when comparing to the last couple of years, I feel like we had less maybe banner titles get the huge treatment, but to make up for that, I feel like the quantity exploded. The number of great releases far outweighs the last couple of years. So it's something that I will happily take the trade-off. We don't need 5 Dawn of the Deads to come out in a year to make it a great year. We've got 45 of these other releases like Fright Night on 4K that are just astonishing upgrades. So yeah, I think it was a pretty incredible year for that. I feel like the resurgence of horror in pop culture was nice to see in the cinema primarily, but it's always something that is there seemingly. So I didn't really view it as this renaissance, but it was at least on everybody's mind, and they were talking about it, which is nice.
It was nice to see like the New York Times, giving positive review space to films like Smile.
And Terrifier 2, which is not something that they ever would have discussed previously.
Yeah, Terrifier. 2022 was the year of Terrifier 2.
All right, so to get into the nitty gritty of some of these categories, first of all, give us a couple and some rundowns of what your favorite boutique labels for 2022 would be.
All right, so you gave me about a week to think about this, and I want you to know that I've been thinking about it every day, and I have a lot of important things to think about in my life, things related to my family's well-being, our financial future, our eventual permanent home, and yet none of them have taken up as much bandwidth this past week than me trying to justify ranking any particular label above another, because what criteria would I use?
Right.
I mentioned Kino Lorber because of my own lucky opportunity to contribute to a single title there. If you're going just based on number of worthwhile films released plus quality of release, not a lot of the movies are like super stacked with extras,
right.
but everything's got something. Plus the number of high quality 4K restorations, ranging from the Dollars trilogy with new Tim Lucas commentaries all the way to did Touch of Evil 4K come out 2022?
That was this year, I believe. Yeah.
Holy cow. And they started doing Kubrick films, Killer's Kiss, The Killing, and Paths of Glory already.
Yep.
So in terms of that, you got to say Kino Lorber won the year. On the other hand, Synapse put out like 5 titles, but it was an incredible 4K restorations of Phenomena and Tenebrae. What's that movie Satan's Little Helper, which people have been waiting for a long time.
Creature from Black Lake, Tombs of the Blind Dead.
Yeah, the Tombs of the Blind Dead, which I was so excited about. They're so active with Timo's podcasts, both for Synapse and Impulse, that you really get a sense of what's going on behind the scenes there. So even though they only released like 5 or 6 films this year, I feel like I know a lot about what was going on behind the scenes, and they're films that are just immaculate. And then in between, Severin, holy cow! Well, let me just Severin, Ray Dennis Steckler, the House of Psychotic Women, all the Reb Brown, and how much O'Keefe? Miles O'Keefe. Rambo ripoffs. I know that they've had, quote unquote, better years with higher profile releases, but this year to me was really stacked. I think there was 1 month when I didn't get the bundle, and that was because I'd already gotten the Al Adams set and I didn't buy again. So I got the stuff that I didn't already have individually. But every other month, and Vinegar Syndrome. What can we say? They're. I know I'm going on and on and on.
No, you're good.
But I'll wrap up in just a second. Vinegar Syndrome. First of all, what they do, obviously, what they do for the formerly disreputable exploitation, horror, and adult genres. So that was a great, solid year, topped off with, Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw 2, Thriller. By the way, I've also got Synapse's Thriller, so collector's item. I got them both. But what they do that I think is even more valuable is their partner labels, which expose us to filmmakers from around the world, non-white male filmmakers, films that totally under the radar, that played at festivals or played in limited release, and now they get these wonderful physical restorations. And of course, they're small batches of 3,000, maybe reprinted again, but still they get preserved and they get seen. And then to transition to the one last one I'll mention for now, though I want to talk about several more labels before we're done. Last one I'll mention in this first volley of verbiage is Criterion, who I know that many people, including yourself, have been kind of ambivalent about the past few years for all kinds of legitimate reasons. Sometimes having to do with the sparseness of new extras, especially when they do upgrades. Sometimes the 4K upgrades aren't incredible, although I actually have not personally seen a bad 4K upgrade yet. So somebody would have to tell me which ones are the bad ones, because I don't do the Blu-ray.com forums.
Honestly, I don't think any of their 4K upgrades are bad. The only thing that's not great is that they literally change nothing about the release. It's just a 4K UHD, which is fine, and I understand that that's legitimate, but it's catering to the audience of people that don't have those releases, which generally that's going to be people that are not a lot of these hardcore collectors.
Right. Yeah, I do the upgrades. 2022 was also the year that I finally bit the bullet and upgraded to 4K, and I started. But anyway, here's what I've been really respecting about Criterion over the past couple years, and some people have been really put off by this, but I think it's great. And that is when they got, I think I might have mentioned this way back in an episode that we talked about, or maybe it was on a different, I don't know. I do so many. No. They, during the outcry after the murder of George Floyd and the kind of expansion of Black Lives Matter, which of course had been going on for over a decade, but really, expanded, after that atrocity. A lot of people kind of getting called out, some, oftentimes legitimately, and Criterion was one of them. They started, criticism about the sort of Eurocentric, Hollywood-centric, mostly white-centric bent of their catalog, and it was because, and here's what I respect: the co-owners, whose names I forget now because it's been a while, but they responded and they were like, "Yeah, you know what? You're right. We're basing our decisions based on our personal tastes, which are kind of dictated by our times in film schools and what was on the curriculum, which was mostly white white American and European films." And since that time, in the past 3 years, they have expanded their scope and really emphasized releasing films by non-white filmmakers, by non-Western, while still including, your canonical classics like Arsenic and Old Lace. But now you get Arsenic and Old Lace and Eve's Bayou, which I know is a film that you like, and Kathy Lemons is a fantastic filmmaker. So I really liked Criterion's slate this year too. I picked up a lot of films that I just on the label alone, because I hadn't heard of them before, and that's why it's so valuable that Criterion responded to that criticism. You can say, 20 years too late. Well, yeah, it is late, but they did it, and now they're doing it, and I really appreciate the direction they've gone in by putting that C on so many films that have been outside of the quote unquote mainstream, which means mostly white consciousness. You expand their reach, and I'm so happy about that. So,
I will throw into, other than the physical media side, they also do an incredible job of curating that on their streaming service. Every single month there's a focus on Black filmmakers or female filmmakers or both. There are so many cultural touch points that they are not able to put out on disc that they still highlight on the streaming service and really just get out to the viewers in I mean, really, when you can't put it out on disc, that is the best way possible for them to highlight that. So it's nice that they're still giving it that sort of attention. I agree.
Yeah, and I'll just say as a sidebar, it's really unfortunate. I know that Criterion's had to lay some people off, and Shutter's possibly laying some people
Yep.
off due to AMC's inability to make a profit, despite owning The Walking Dead. And it's really unfortunate because streaming as a supplement to physical media collection on smaller scales, so like the Criterion Channel, Shutter, the Full Moon Channel, which is awesome and people should get it, and the Trauma Channel. They let stuff that's not available in physical media. You can check out stuff that you want to preview first before picking up, and stuff that'll never get released because it's just not economically viable or there aren't elements. I've really enjoyed. I kind of structure my viewing each week so that I'm watch a couple of physical discs and then a couple on streaming, and then yeah. So I hope that some of the economics get sorted out and these channels remain viable, because they've been just great for people like me.
Well, and even for other people that need it just for accessibility purposes. There's obviously physical media is a very privileged hobby to be a part of, and if you are not able to participate in that, you can for less than the cost of one like limited edition disc, you can subscribe to like 3 services. So I understand that it is a difficult thing to justify for a lot of people, but it is again, it's if you're looking at the fullest potential, it is best to supplement the physical collecting with the streaming. So it's nice to have it, and it's nice to be able to point others to it and sample before you buy on some of these things, for sure. I would never argue with that.
Well, so tell me, I have several other labels that I would highlight, but do you have a label or labels that you think really in a banner year really stood out?
This is tough because I would have to name a few that you named as well, obviously, but and we're going to get into the differences here in just a second between what we view as our favorite label and what we view as like the best annual slate of films from a label. But there are probably just 2 others that I think out of the list that you gave that I didn't hear any attention for that I wanted to highlight a little bit. And the first one is Second Sight. I always go back to Second Sight in the UK, and it's difficult because, like Synapse, they are not this prolific boutique company where they're announcing 5 or 8 titles a month. So I understand that they don't overwhelm with a quantity. However, they do overwhelm with a quality. The number of things that they put out in a ridiculously amazing stacked box set with tons of new bonus features, and the bonus features that they're getting are astonishing. I mean, putting out The Witch on 4K with new interviews with like Anya Taylor-Joy, who's one of the hottest actresses in Hollywood right now, to be able to get any attention with her, that's insanity. But just the fact that we have massive titles from them like Drive getting these releases that are stocked, 2 full books, 2 books, not booklets, books for the film Drive. The Witch is an incredible release, but beyond that, they supplement it with some modern indie films. They supplement it with some Hammer films this year. They supplement it with films that are stone cold classics, and it's difficult to argue with that when you're getting something like The Witch, but then also something like Tangerine from Sean Baker, and then something like Bull that just came out in 2021 that is this incredible crime film that people are raving about. And then again, you end the year with a month where they put out 2 really loaded releases of Hammer films that just they were like quietly released, and it's hard to not pay attention when everything is this caliber of release. That obviously it's really easy to harp on the physical aspect because they always put out this deluxe edition box and this wonderful book, but just what is on the disc alone is always astonishing, always as loaded as they can possibly do it. And again, if you can only watch the disc, it is still worth it. And that's the best part about Second Sight, is so far they've primarily been releasing standard editions of all of their stuff. So you should be able to get it for fairly inexpensive. You can order that from day one rather than thinking, oh God, this might go out of print. I need to worry about, fear of missing out or something like that. So that's wonderful. And then the other one that I just have to be constantly blown away by is the ability of Imprint Films to put out so many releases. And I will be the first to say that they are not all perfect. A lot of their transfers are only so. But the other aspect that a lot of people don't understand about these releases is many of these boutiques, they don't do the transfers on their films. We talk about things like Severin and Synapse and Vinegar Syndrome, how they are amazing at some of these releases because their transfers are amazing. Imprint doesn't, as far as I'm aware, they've never done a single restoration on any of their films. They license restorations from the studios, and so far they have been the big one to break through to Paramount, which amazing. The fact that they greased the wheels and now Paramount is doing all kinds of stuff for home video in the US, which they were not doing, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
But packaging some of these things together, like, again, it's my favorite box sets of the year, the After Dark Neo-Noir Cinema set that they put out. It's a ridiculously great set of films together, and no other label is putting out the number of films that they are with these high-quality releases all together. The only one that would be comparable would maybe be Kino, but again, Imprint is going balls to the wall with commentaries and interviews and video essays and everything all combined. And Kino will, they'll throw a commentary on pretty much everything nowadays, which is great. Believe me, I love that. But Imprint, like they've only been around since May of 2020, and they've already announced more than Spine, like 205. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I just actually got their Essential Noir #3, which had gone out of print like suddenly, or not out of print, but was unavailable suddenly. I'm not sure what happened, so maybe you know some of the background, but it has William Wyler's The Desperate Hours with Humphrey Bogart, so I had to get it because the DVD edition of it is so bad. Those noir sets they put out, the Roland Joffe set that we talked about on a live stream maybe a month ago. Imprint and Second Sight, of course. You mentioned Dawn of the Dead earlier. I've got the Second Sight's Deluxe Dawn of the Dead, and of course, Martin coming out next year. Yeah, those two are really, really good. And we could add Eureka and 88 to the conversation as well. Umbrella, get down to Australia. Gosh, there's so much.
There really are. And that's why it would be damn near impossible for me to say this is my absolute favorite for the year. The overall quality of it, I have to maybe lean towards Kino, to be honest. The number of releases that they put out that are genuinely great. I still can't believe that every single day we're getting an announcement from them, basically.
Yeah, and it's amazing the range of, classic, by classic I mean older films, silent films. They're the only ones who really do silent. Not many, but some. And I think we were joking in the Discord a while back about the number of Robert Siodmak films that they had put out, and and I was so happy. But mixed with the number of contemporary and global, films just from around the world. I saw an interview in which, what's his name? Let me make sure I get it right. Well, it doesn't matter. One of the guys, Frank Tarzi from Kino Lorber, who makes a lot of the decisions about what films get released. He was really somber in his assessment of the physical media's future economically, because he was suggesting that the market for it wasn't growing, that as older collectors cycled out of the economy of it, newer collectors weren't coming in. And I really hope he's wrong. I have, anecdotally, I think he's wrong, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the global numbers. Right. That being said, the number of films that Kino puts out that I wouldn't have thought would be economically viable is amazing. And I try to pick up as many as I can, especially when they do their like ridiculously low price sales. I'll always pick up a couple of titles just on description alone. So I hope the future is brighter than he seems to think it is, because there's so much available now and coming.
That is what you just brought up is the other thing I was about to say about Kino is no matter what, there is always this ever like revolving door of sales that they have.
Mm-hmm.
They've got probably 4 or 5 big ones a year that they do. And at this point, it is an average day when they announce that their sale is going to have about 850 titles.
Right.
And that's not exaggerating at all. It's crazy that we're seeing that. But the best part is that when they put these things on sale, the average price of a release is like $8.
Yeah.
And many of them, 4Ks that just came out 7 months ago are $15. And that is no other label is able to do that, really. Some of the studios, obviously, because they're selling them en masse at Walmart. But for a boutique physical media to be able to put that out like that, that is a great price. And then when the vast majority of your releases are $10 or under during those sales, you're just going to entice everybody to get more, especially when free shipping is $50. Why would you not buy 5 or 6 just to be able to get to that point? It's so easy to load up on Kino.
Every time I get an email announcing a sale, I'm like, damn it, because I know that I have a whole work day that I've lost because I'm going to have a secret tab open that I'm scrolling through.
Oh, yeah.
The sale list.
So is there a single label out of everything you talked about that you would say, you know what, I think were my favorite one for 2022?
All right, I'm gonna dodge the question for a minute, and then mention a couple more that I wanted to just give props to. Mondo Macabro.
They had a banner year, genuinely.
Wow, just so much great stuff. And actually, and that's how I discovered you in the first place, right? I was Googling around for some Mondo releases just about a year ago. February of 2022, right?
Yep.
And saw your interview with Jared, and thought it was a great interview, and that's when I reached out. So obviously, I've got now an emotional connection to Mondo Macabro because it's become part of my friendship with you. But I've loved their releases always, but this year in particular, and I love the way they kind of half-heartedly adopt some of the sales tactics of others. Like they're like, okay, we'll do bundles, but they're like $5 cheaper than if you buy them separately. And okay, we'll do these special limited edition red cases. And the red cases look nice, but I mean, they don't really add value to the.
Right.
So I actually like that. I think that's intentional or not. I think it's funny. But the releases, I mean, Haruka the Goblin, Succubus. They got a Jess Franco movie out, The Other Side of the Mirror, In the Folds of the Flesh. Just a great year last year. Like Synapse, they don't release a whole lot. They do release more than Synapse, but also Mondo Macabro is the one label where anytime they have a release announcement, it's likely I haven't heard of any of them.
Right.
And so I always look forward to learning from Mondo Macabro. Can't wait for my Bollywood box set. I know they've already said they'll never do another box set. That's really too bad because I purchased it immediately. So So Mondo Macabro would be one of the ones in my list of banner year. I don't know. What do we make of a label like Error 4444? Who did they have? Two.
They had 2 sets of releases this year. Each of them double features, basically.
For the Funky Forest, Warped Forest, and then the Red Spells Red and the Centipede Horror.
Centipede Horror, yeah.
And those were great.
Yep.
I loved their bundles and all the cool artwork and extras. Not many releases, but some really incredible ones. And based on your interview with them, hopefully some interesting stuff to come. I'm looking at a list of hell. You'd have to add Full Moon Video this year to Banner Years with the Trancers 4K and their Blu-rays are not amazing restorations, but the fact that they get out at all is kind of nice. 3 Jim Wynorski movies this year, so that's very exciting for me. But gosh, and then the partner labels that Vinegar Syndrome works with, Canadian Independent or International. You mentioned Paramount's been doing some stuff. We haven't even talked about Vestron, who put out a couple good things this year. What would I do?
Consistency of Indicator that has been great this year. I gotta throw out Cauldron as one of the better of the year as well. I mean, it's so hard to discount somebody just because they put out less than 10 titles, but every single thing that they put out is amazing. And that release of City of the Living Dead obviously is going to be the definitive release. It looks amazing.
Yeah, Cauldron, Convoy Busters, just a bunch of great releases this year. We haven't mentioned, Shout and Scream. They released a lot of great stuff, even though we dislike the price gouging with their limited editions, but I still bought Space Truckers because I was so excited about it. I guess, and Cold Epics, putting out the
Sylvia Christel stuff,
the Juice Jackin stuff. What do we say? We'll put Mill Creek down a lower tier. We can do that, right? So we can put I would put all the major studios down at a lower tier. Although Paramount released a lot of good things this year, as you mentioned. Gosh,
I mean, it's even hard for me to say that because Sony put out some of my favorite releases of the year. The Columbia Classics Volume 3 set is remarkable. The Sony Pictures Classics Anniversary box is ridiculously good. The releases that we get on, some of these, I don't know if I have an actual Sony one offhand. I'd have to look because I don't have all the studios memorized. But stuff like, the Lost Boys Steelbook is ridiculously high quality. The Fright Night Steelbook, that one's Sony. Yeah, we'll go over that one. That one's as close by. This is the definitive release of Fright Night. We'll probably not ever get anything better for Fright Night than this Steelbook. It's got everything that we could have in it, and I love that. Yes, choosing favorite is difficult, obviously.
You're absolutely right, though. I mean, even if I want to slag somebody, there'll be at least something that is really exciting. Yeah. Even Mill Creek released a couple of titles that the Randolph Scott box set. I mean, it was great. Not amazing transfers or extras, but they exist, and now we can see them. And that's so. I don't know. Am I being disappointing? I'm gonna say, well, I'm gonna stick with my based on the criteria. I'll have some different answers. Like I said before, you got to give it to Kino just based on quantity plus quality. But Vinegar Syndrome's evolution this year, I don't know if it counts because a lot of the results of the evolution didn't happen until January the 1st of 2023. But the evolution of Vinegar Syndrome this year, the development of how they market their partner labels, the development of how they rotate their pricing with the monthly spotlight of partners, which I hope continues, as well as the diversification of their own announcements. For every homegrown horror regional box set, you're going to get something huge like Texas Chainsaw 2, which is amazing.
And now a Hong Kong title as well.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about the. Oh wait, that'll be on the Thursday show, right? Great. Um, I'll save all of that. So I would have to say Vinegar Syndrome based on the criteria of their customer interaction model, with second place for me going to Severin, because I love what they do with their podcast, the way they kind of introduce their announcements to people and then punctuate it with a really nice DJ set of film
DJ
score.
Alfonso.
Yeah. DJ Alfonso's awesome. I want a DJ Alfonso show, the standalone. That's great. So I'll go Vinegar Syndrome and Severin as 1A and 1B. And then for the small, we'll call them small batch labels, Synapse and Mondo Macabro, Indicator and Second Sight, as you've mentioned. What was the other one?
Cauldron.
Jeez, I can't choose. I'm gonna simultaneously be grateful to Shout Factory / Scream Factory for their 4K upgrades, but also pissed at them for announcing 4K upgrades right after everybody buys the Blu-rays.
Well, we're gonna get it. We're gonna get to that in a little while. So
Okay.
that was favorite labels. Let's go a little, since we kind of covered this already. We're going to talk about the annual slates now. For these, with the different labels, it's obviously art being completely objective, he says sarcastically. It is very difficult to rate or rank films because certain things are going to connect to certain people very differently. So the question, not being favorite label, not being most output or highest quality physical release or anything like that, just overall films, what do you think are, we'll say, your top 3 labels with just these are the best like annual slate of films that I loved being able to watch from this year?
Oh man. Oh, you know what? We forgot to even mention Arrow, who had a pretty good year themselves. Let's see. Scream Factory in 2022 dropped The Howling in 4K, Alligator 4K, The Sword and the Sorcerer 4K, Cursed on Blu-ray from Wes Craven, Candyman 4K, Craft 4K, Escape from New York, Escape from LA 4Ks, The Child's Play film.
Shout Factory didn't do Escape from LA 4K. I have to say that.
Oh, was I wrong? Who did
that? The studio did Escape from LA.
My bad. But so Escape from New York, Child's Play, The Halloweens. They ended the year with Carrie on 4K. So in Army of Darkness 4K. So in terms of like comfort films that we all, or I shouldn't say we all, but many of us know inside and out, from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray and out to 4K. I got to give Shout Factory a lot of love or Scream Factory, whatever, for their 2022 slate, because so many of those films are like fundamental to many of our like film love.
Right.
So there's that. In terms of like what label taught me the most this year of new things that I saw that I want to watch again, probably a tie between Vinegar Syndrome and Kino, with very different very different genres. That's what I'll say there.
I'm not going to have a super clear answer for this either, but to kind of sum it up, we've talked about Vinegar Syndrome and Kino quite a bit. Those are 2 of my picks easily. I think Vinegar Syndrome put out some absolute bangers this year. I mean, to get Freeway on 4K and Drop Dead Fred in the same year is mind-blowing. And to cap that off with the fact that they're diversifying genres through Vinegar Syndrome themselves, not just through the partner labels, which they obviously are, but it is amazing to see. And then to also get beloved films like Texas Chainsaw 2 and Roadhouse and Cloak and Dagger. I mean, all of those happened in 2022. And for a label that was just 4 years ago looked down on as trash sleaze and porn, and that's it, is such a massive jump up in quality. Kino Lorber had an amazing year. Again, I've already talked about them quite a bit, but just for aligning with my taste, a lot of what they have chosen has been perfect, genuinely perfect. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the classics, but that's not necessarily because I don't like them. It's just a massive blind spot. So I'm sure that I'd probably like a lot of them, but the ones that they have put out from the 70s onwards, it's like they read out of my wish list, and it's fantastic. Then I finally, I think this is the moment that I have to turn around and give it up for Criterion, because 2022 has been the year for them that has turned everything around in my mind about them. The fact that their 4Ks have been astonishing, and a handful of them are initial releases and not just upgrades. It is great.
Right.
The fact that they are putting out a lot more indie filmmaker stuff this year. We had a month where we got Frownland and another release that was associated with the Safdie brother, all in the span of a couple weeks, is shocking. The continued focus on things that are fundamental from other cultures, like we finally have the Infernal Affairs trilogy, and it may not be the highest quality that everybody wanted, but we have it. I believe this year we got the 4K release of Shaft, and that was an amazing release from them. But then to continue to establish what their reputation started out as and deliver something amazing like Arsenic and Old Lace, and see that as one of the best comedy releases associated with the fact that they blew away a wonderful release of Pink Flamingos, is just perfect. It is a label that has been great, which makes the fact that they had to lay off people this year extra sad, because they were, in my opinion at least, hitting their stride this year. This is what they should have been for the last couple of years, and I adore it.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through their release slate and can't believe it.
Right.
Everything from another Sean Baker co-directed piece like Takeout, all the way up to Raging Bull 4K, Wall-E, another Martin Scorsese World Cinema Project, Malcolm X, Love Jones, Cooley High, which is a personal favorite. Just so happy to see the expansion of what classic cinema means. Their slate is pretty impeccable this year, and so far what they've announced for 2023 is amazing. So,
I would agree there. And then they ended the year with an amazing 2 box set month in December, where we got 2 different trilogies, one with Michael Haneke, and I'm blown away. They absolutely they did great for 2022. So we've talked about a lot of really good things, but go ahead.
But they're missing like 30 seconds of Miller's Crossing, and that is unforgivable.
I mean, I do got to stand by the fact that it's on the studio disc, and there's not even like a great upgrade to that disc. That is a terrible release.
No, I kept the studio release for that reason. Actually. Filmmakers are going to meddle with their stuff.
I mean, you actually just answered one of the perfect things I'm about to go into. We talked about a lot of the great things. Don't want to get overly positive and just like worship at the throne of physical media, because it's not all great. What do you think was some of the things that were rough this year? And I'll say one that we kind of already touched on, and then I want to talk about one kind of related to that. The 4K reissues from some of these companies. So I think in descending order of those that are exploiting it, Shout Factory is absolutely the worst at this. And then in second place, it appears to be going towards Arrow, and then Criterion is kind of leading the bottom of those that pack there. Shout Factories is particularly egregious, in my opinion. There's a few things that they're doing that are just like dirty tactics to sell some of these releases. The let me introduce enamel pins to entice people to buy every single one. The fact that when they announce these titles, it says extras are under development and will be announced later, and then 2.5 months later it says, oh, it's all the same extras that we had the first time we put out this film. That's gross in my opinion. Arrow hasn't been terrible. I think that some of the releases that they're reissuing are odd choices, like to get a silent running 4K is not that that's a bad thing, but I can't imagine that was a huge seller for them necessarily either.
I chose not to upgrade on that one.
Yeah, same here. Criterion's has also been a little rough for me just because they've made some choices where they were put out in the last few years, and now they're getting 4K upgrades, and there's nothing different other than the 4K aspect, which, again, love that we're getting it in the highest quality, but don't love the upgrades. I just want somebody like a Shout Factory. They should be having a new to them title every single month and not just side exclusives, which is another bad thing that we could talk about. But if you're going to announce, a 4K re-release of Piranha and we'll say Carrie in the same month, which I know they weren't in the same month, but those shouldn't be like, we're leading the pack with these two that we already put out before and also quietly not releasing anything else that's brand new to us. It seems like a really odd choice.
Yeah. For people like you and me, I think it's really frustrating. I try to figure out like what the justification is. Is it that, like I want it to be them thinking, well, some of the new 4K heads that have jumped in, straight to 4K can pick these up and that'll move some units. But then the more cynical thing is the people that buy every version of this movie are going to upgrade. And that is really frustrating. I never pay full price for those things, which is such a codependent relationship thing to say. It's like, well, just for that, I'm waiting for a sale.
The hard part about all this is not even saying that they're bad releases, because like the Black Christmas 4K, it's genuinely a great upgrade. There's a huge audio change on that disc that is much better than the first one. It is probably the best disc that film will ever get, and I'm glad because I love that movie and it looks great in 4K. But I don't know, it feels dirty.
Right. And then Vinegar Syndrome will come along and be like, fuck you! We're taking From Beyond and Texas Chainsaw 2 and giving them deluxe new extras and 4K treatment. So yeah,
plus X-Ray, plus Schizoid, plus a couple others,
So I think that's definitely been troublesome to navigate, and takes away space from what could be other titles. I guess in other bad things of 2022 or negative things, well, actually I should say, RIP to Banana Man Olsen from Code Red, right? That was a really sad moment of the year, because he was so kind of associated with the personality of the label. Not much discussion there. It's just add to the list of sort of the downsides of 2022.
If we're going to do in memoriam, I have to mention Sergio Mims also, who passed away, the contributor that was from Chicago, huge in the black cinema scene. So yeah, absolutely. And not to mention, we can go on and on about actors and
we lost so many great people.
So many this year.
I won't do a list for fear of being like the Oscars and leaving off somebody important, as they did when Toby Hooper passed away. Let's see, what are some of the other downsides? Well, I'll mention one that's like kind of a down thing for this year, but it was one that we knew was going to happen and hopefully will lead to better things. Warner Archives releases kind of slowed to a trickle.
Yep.
There's some reorganization going on there. I don't know the specifics. You probably know more than I do. But I will say what they did release in 2022 was pretty good. Very excited about The Adventures of Don Juan with Errol Flynn. That's one of my favorite movies with him. I mean, The Clock, Todd Browning's Mark of the Vampire, both of the early versions of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Giant on 4K. So they really did have a good slate of releases. Gold Diggers of 1933, one of my favorite musicals. They really did have a good slate of releases. It just wasn't many, and it used to be that Warner would put out 4 or 5 titles a month. So hopefully 2023 we'll see more good restorations from the archives, because there's so many Warner Brothers titles in need of high definition release.
It's true.
And I worry we're going to be stuck with, well, some haven't been released at all, and then others with DVDs that are flawed. So.
I think the last one for me that I really want to make sure that is out in the zeitgeist for people to potentially at least find some way to protest against. The fact that we are continuing to get, well, I guess this is kind of twofold. Best Buy, they're releasing 4K exclusive steelbooks, and nobody else gets access to these. And the hard part is, in almost every single Best Buy across this country, they're shutting down their physical media collection. So it is relegated to online and shipping, and their shipping leaves much to be desired. But the other side of the coin is maybe more sinister, in my opinion, and that's the fact that we are getting some of these films released on a higher quality format exclusively to Best Buy in a specific release that goes out of print very quickly. So this year we saw Clerks 3 from Kevin Smith. We saw the Bob's Burgers movie. We saw Terrifier 2. We saw 2 or 3 others that were released on 4K only at Best Buy.
Punisher Warzone. I got that.
And if somebody wants to see that film on the highest quality on physical media, you either pre-order it and hope that it doesn't sell out before you get a copy, or you are screwed and you don't get a copy. But it doesn't make sense for me, for a company that is so like heartfelt set on moving away from physical media, to get exclusive physical media releases. I don't understand why we're, biting the hand that feeds us in a way that makes no sense.
Yeah, it's strange because even at the height of DVD, I don't know anybody who went to Best Buy to get something, for movie browsing, because their selections just weren't anything worth looking at. And yeah, to have, I don't know. I don't understand. I guess their calculation that they can make a little bit of a buff of a small run, but to cut off access like that in the long term does nothing but hurt the film and a wider potential audience. I don't know. Yeah. I've ordered a couple things from Best Buy, like Punisher Warzone, because I was like, this I have to. But it's not something I felt good about.
I agree. We've got 2 things finally to touch on before we wrap it up, and they kind of go hand in hand. The first thing I want to go over is what just had a moment in 2022, but then the other thing is what as physical media enthusiasts, what are we going to look back on fondly about 2022? So if you've got an answer for either of these, by all means, you can lead this one.
Okay, what had a moment in 2022, right?
Yep.
All right. Oh, this is going to sound like I'm biased, but I actually don't.
I think you're about to take my answer.
Oh, no. I don't think so, but I do want to talk about. Okay, I don't know if we're thinking about the same thing or not. I'm gonna say a filmmaker, and then I'm gonna say a phenomenon.
The filmmaker is what I was talking about.
Oh, okay, I thought you thought. Okay, well then, I think Toby Hooper had a year.
He really did.
I'd like to think that I had something to do with it. That is not true, because we sold like 400 books maybe.
By definition, you had something to do with it.
So for anyone who's seen this for the first time, I'm one of the co-editors of American Twilight, the Cinema of Tobe Hooper, which came out in 2021 on the University of Texas Press. And actually how Ryan and I met is I reached out and was like, hey, I got this book about Tobe Hooper. Can I come on your channel? And he very graciously invited me to do so. And so I really have been, in my small corner of things, stomping for Tobe Hooper. But certainly Vinegar Syndrome and Scream Factory had no interest in or awareness of that project at all. They, were already in the project of upgrading Life Force and Funhouse, Texas Chainsaw 2. Stan Geezy published 2 books about Tobe Hooper. Scout Tafoya published a book about Tobe Hooper, and all of these things were independent of each other. Now the books all came out in 2021. These 4K upgrades came out in 2022. So I like to think that Tobe Hooper is having a moment. I got to see Fathom, which a problematic company, but I got to see a Fathom release of Poltergeist in the theater. It looked great. It sounded great this year. So Tobe Hooper, I feel is having a moment, but I'm also more attuned to, like, if somebody hashtags Tobe Hooper, I'm getting an announcement. So there are some other film moments. Obviously, Terrifier 2, Smile, horror in general is having a moment. But what I want to say is having a moment is the development and the evolution of physical media enthusiasts and film enthusiasts in general, podcasting and YouTubing. The ecosystem of high quality programming and the amount of collaboration and teaming up, which is something that I think you are on the honestly, not because I know you, but honestly, I think you are on the vanguard of the sort of collaborative and community building that has been happening on a new level in 2022. And I think Shelf Shock, which I'm so happy is happening, I'm so happy to be a little part of it. But that's a really cool thing to come out of this media landscape. I mean, and what do you even call this genre? I'm fascinated by it. I'm immersed in it. And it's way more than just unboxing videos now. You're scrolling through YouTube or looking at podcasts, and you're getting people who are not necessarily in the film industry or from like academia, but are extremely knowledgeable and thoughtful and serious about film history and film analysis, and it is awesome. Nobody's making any money, but
this is true.
But that's the other thing. It's like this unofficial media, right? It's like, I mean, we're hobbyists in the sense that there's no money involved, or very little. At most, people are getting screeners, right, of stuff to review.
Right.
The number of people who have like ad monetization is like minuscule. But to call it just to call it hobby. A hobby is doesn't capture the full scope of of what's going on, because this media landscape, netscape, is also beginning to have an influence on film culture. I think how much of an impact and what that impact is going to look like, I think, is going to remain to be seen, but I think it's going to accelerate in the coming years. So Those are my two things: Toby Hooper and shows like this.
I genuinely had Toby Hooper written down for this because
Really?
it is hard to look at a year that we've gotten and not think, holy hell, look at the amount of attention this guy is getting. Because Funhouse, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, maybe if we go into Life Force, it would be like, oh, that's pretty good. But a studio putting out a great restoration and release of Poltergeist, the fact that we're getting a TV film like I'm Dangerous Tonight in 2022, the fact that we are hyped up because two different companies are putting out the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre on 4K coming out in March. It is basically like it is naive to look at this and not think of Toby Hooper because of his vast attention to multiple genres, his ability to film on a budget that made these affordable and studios could get behind, his ability to appeal to people with different sensibilities and react to current events in an emotional and vulnerable way without showing that, and yet getting his messages across is astonishing. And to reflect on that in 2022, it's so easy to genuinely like get emotional about the fact that we just lost one of the greatest filmmakers a few years ago. And it is hard to not look back on this year and just think of Toby. It's so wonderful to see everything that we're getting from him.
Yeah. And having spent the last 2 years of my life immersed in research about him, to see these releases coming out all of a sudden just makes me greedy for where's the apartment complex, where's Night Terrors, I really hope that the with the release of the different chainsaw titles next year, I hope that the ball keeps rolling for the Toby Hooper filmography.
I would agree there. There's a handful of other stuff that I think could be handled very well. It seems like one of the big ones left would be Eaten Alive to get a nice upgrade. I could see Arrow upgrading their release potentially, but Toby is just special.
And and let me ask you, because I'm a barnacle on the hull of the disconnected ship. You are so connected, right? Through social media, through Discord, through the podcast version, through the YouTube version. You've made connections with other what's the term now? Content creators, right? And you've got a pretty good sense of the shows that you really like, people you want to team up with, the shows that maybe aren't for you, that you're kind of like, and I won't ask you to name them. But what's your sense of this landscape of this new kind of broadcasting? You've been doing this now for almost 2 years, right?
Technically on the YouTube side, almost 2 years.
Yeah, but you've been a film fanatic for much longer, and where do you see things, or what's your sense of how things have developed and where things are headed? Is that?
It's a great question, and I didn't prepare a philosophical answer for this, unfortunately, but I think that we're at a really interesting point because we're getting the best releases of some of the best films that have ever been created, and that is undeniable. But on the other hand of that, we are on the precipice of pricing people and the everyday person out of this industry at all. And it is overwhelming for somebody to think of themselves as a collector in this hobby in any sense when you see something like what's behind me and you right now and go, well, that's a shit ton of money. And if I just watch on Netflix. I can't be a collector like that person. And the whole underlying focus that I wish more people led with in some of this, I hate the word, but content creation, is the appreciation and genuine love of the actual art form. And as I have somehow turned into this ambassador for archiving film and archiving art in a way that is preserved to the best of its possible capabilities, we are genuinely in danger of losing a lot of these things. And if we do price people out, I'm worried that that act alone will make it so a lot of these more obscure titles will literally cease to exist fairly soon. And it is such a volatile industry that we've been talking about the death knell of physical media for 20 years. And it should have happened multiple times already. I'm not going to deny that. But it is through a lot of these collectors that these things can survive. But how many more years can people subscribe to Vinegar Syndrome at such a rapid rate? How many partner labels can separate like TerraVision and start their own subscription? How many new Fran Simeones are we going to get that start something like Radiance Films in the UK that are releasing underseen, undervalued, underappreciated films that literally have never seen the light of day on physical media? It is something that is genuinely in danger. And if we continue to see $55 releases, it might be nearing the end of that. And on the other hand, it's hard to say something like that because a $55 release of Four Flies on Grey Velvet on 4K, I hate to say it, it's worth that. I understand the amount of work that went into it. I mean, Severin on their latest podcast, they said that the rights to that film, they could not restore the film themselves unless it stayed in one very specific Italian lab. So they brought a scanner to Italy in this lab. That's not cheap.
Yeah. My favorite part of that was how David Gregory concluded by saying that he was going all in on the cardboard wars so you can get your slip cases.
Right. So I understand the pricing is important and everybody involved deserves to be fed and clothed. So I'm not trying to take that away, but it is a genuine danger because when a subscription from Vinegar Syndrome costs $980 for somebody that was not a subscriber last year, plus potentially taxes, plus potentially upgrading to this upgraded shipping package that they have, like we're talking like $1,200 a year to subscribe to one company. And obviously you don't need to subscribe, but if you want to be somebody that is helping in investing in the medium itself, that is kind of the best way to do it, to front load some of the money to some of these companies to be able to afford something like Freeway. They can't just spring out of pocket to restore these in 4K for films that they don't know are going to sell when they have no capital. I mean, it's not that simple.
Yeah, it really is a fraught industry, which makes it kind of ironic that all of the discourse around physical media is digital, right? Like we don't get physical releases of Disconnected. So we're in the digital domain, talking about the preservation and expansion of the physical media market, and we as private collectors are in some ways taking on or I guess one way of looking at it is crowdsourcing the cost of archiving, right?
True.
We're subsidizing these labels because we believe that the preservation of these films is important, right? Because once they're made, even if the company goes out of business, they exist and they can be preserved and maintained. And I guess, right, you call your collection the archive, right?
I call it the Disconnected Museum and Library.
Oh, okay. Who calls it the archive? You're the museum and library. I call mine the vault. But that's what they are, right? They're curated archives of a very idiosyncratic collection, right? Like all the stuff that well, my 104 Jess Franco films, actually 105 now, because I have to cover up part of this. You know, back in a couple months ago when Pulse put out the Jess Franco Chez Brûle de Partout, and it sold out in like 3 minutes, so I didn't get one. I got pissed off that I didn't get one. So I went to the Pulse website and found that if you order it directly from Pulse, you get Chez Brûle de Partout plus Dark Mission. So you get an extra Jess Franco Brigitte Lahaye film. Nice. And so now I've got 105 Jess Franco movies.
Interesting.
What were we talking about? Oh, yeah. It's a very precarious thing. Like the stacks behind me, just constantly in danger of collapsing.
This is true. So I mean, it's kind of a melancholy way to say, what do we look back on fondly from 2022? Like, things are not great overall for a lot of people right now. So again, I will emphasize the fact that this is a very privileged hobby to be able to partake in. But perhaps this is, I don't want to say like the beginning of the end necessarily, but it is a time where during the last 2 years of this pandemic that we've been in, it has been potentially the highest point for many of these labels, and it is potentially going to be on the downswing for some of them. I don't see all of this ever going away. I think that there will always be some, obviously, but it is going to be very difficult for some of these partner labels that maybe don't sell out of 1,000 slipcover releases every 2.5 weeks to be able to put out a new one every single month. And that's where like the whole OCN and partner label thing gets really confusing for a lot of people, because Vinegar Syndrome does not pay these labels necessarily. They only get paid when they make sales. They are a completely different company.
Kind of
so
base, yeah.
They are helping with distribution and maybe getting more attention, but it's not something that Vinegar Syndrome is not releasing the release of Solomon King that Deaf Crocodile did. Deaf Crocodile is 100% of the credit for that release. So it is hard to separate those when you have 22 small companies associated with one giant of OCN distribution. It is a lot that is hanging in the balance for some of these.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. The margin for success and failure is so slim, and I think I shouldn't say a lot of, but several of the interviews you've done with folks from various labels, many of whom are OCN partner labels, have discussed that, how they have to, make decisions and how slim their profit margins are and so on. And I do wonder, because as we look back on 2022, to answer your question, what I look back on fondly, and it is a privilege, but I look back fondly on, wow, how many just great films we have access to, and that's fantastic. As I look ahead, the pandemic actually, at least initially, was kind of a benefit to many of these physical media companies, and you've talked about this on various episodes. But now that we've faced inflation and the economy is kind of recovering in fits and starts, people struggle in some areas, people are starting to do better in others. What's going to be the future for these labels? Already we're seeing some announcements of pretty ambitious 2023s, which gives me hope. But I really have no idea of predicting what the next couple of years are going to be like in this small niche industry, much less the larger global economy. I will say this, though, I'm looking forward to in 2023. I finally got a microphone.
Yay!
So hopefully next time I'm on, I'll sound better.
Fantastic.
I don't have any headphones yet.
We'll make it work somehow. This has been illuminating and something that I will look back on fondly, and I appreciate wrap ups like this because it is a really interesting way to digest the happenings of an entire year and to see, some of my favorites of the year that I've been going over on the channel, capped up by something like this. It's a lot, and it's a lot to reflect on, and I just hope that we're able to keep reflecting on great years like this for many more to come, and
Absolutely.
can't wait to see what happens.
Can I say one last thing?
Of course.
Save it for the very end because I don't want to make you emotional or anything. But you know what my very favorite thing of 2022 was?
What's that, Will?
You, Ryan. Getting to meet you and get connected to you, and hopefully in person soon, has just been so great. I'm so grateful to be a part of the community and to be a guest on the show. And I look forward to our conversations. And thanks. It really has been awesome. I'm looking forward to more.
Well, thank you. If you haven't noticed yet, Will is hopefully for the foreseeable future planning on being the guest on Reconnected on the first Thursday of every single month. Just because we both feel like there's something here. There's some sort of magical chemistry where these conversations go places that a lot of others don't seem to go, and I appreciate that, and I want to highlight that for everybody because you have a valuable voice and you deserve to be heard a lot more. So it's the smallest portion that I can do to introduce you to the world more every single month.
Well, thanks. Yeah, our conversations are so fun, and I look forward to. I might even start, preparing at some point.
Why break up a good thing when it's been happening? Well, Will mentioned the Shelf Shock Rewind Awards earlier. I will say that the date this goes up, there will be, let me count in my head, 11 more days to be able to vote on that. Voting ends on January 15th. And if you want your voice heard, links for that are in the description below. There's also a giveaway running with that. So if you can post yourself with a 30-minute video standing in front of your collection or something like that saying why you love physical media, we're going to pick 5 winners to be a part of the live show itself, and one of those 5 winners will even win a $50 gift certificate to Grindhouse Video, and there's even more coming. So make sure you're following everything and just get involved. That's the whole point of the awards. It's been a blast to do.
One real quick thing. You accidentally said 30-minute video. I want to clarify to listeners, 30 seconds. My God.
Wow. I appreciate that. I'm mostly verbose here. I'm going to try to not talk forever on the Shelf Shock Rewind Awards, but yes, please keep it to 30 seconds. And yeah, that would help immensely. Will, thank you again for this, and for everybody else, from 2 collectors to all of you. I normally say have a good night, but primarily since this is coming out at the beginning of the year, have a great 2023. It's been hard for a lot of people, and I think that it is a time for us to find some genuine silver linings. So my silver lining for my first time here is with you. Thank you, Will.
Thank you.